I, 33 male, have been married to my wife, 30 female, for 7 years. It felt like my wife and I were working to get our life together for a long time. Eventually, we bought a house because I finally saved enough money. She was making money too, but it was barely above minimum wage. My job required that I travel a lot, and at the most I would be gone for 1 week at a time. We made it work by video calling and texting a lot. However, it became clear that my time away bothered her. She would go out with friends often and started doing that even when I was home. This was devastating to me because I thought if she loved me, she would spend as much time with me as possible. One night, we were both home and she was absorbed in her phone. I finally had enough and asked her what was going on. She became defensive immediately and said that she didn't feel close to me anymore because I wasn't home often enough. I reminded her that she suggested I get this job so we could afford nice things in life. She said she really enjoyed the relationships she had with her friends and needed that time to relieve stress. I asked her if I could meet her friends and she said no, that it would be awkward for her to combine her home life with her work life. I was deeply hurt and could tell I wasn't going to persuade her, so I dropped it for the time being. Soon I was told to go on another business trip, but I told my wife it would be longer than it really was. When I came home, I could see a shirtless man through the front window of my house. I swear it was like my heart stopped beating. I assumed it was one of her coworkers, but when I got closer, it turned out to be our married neighbor from down the street. Out of all the people my wife could be cheating on me with, it was someone I knew. He came to our house with his wife a month ago for a barbecue, and for all I knew, that's when their affair started. I watched through the window easily, getting a clear view of them kissing and touching like they were a couple. I walked back to my car and called the guy's wife. These were neighbors we exchanged numbers with and asked to watch our house when we went away. She answered and I asked her if she knew where her husband was. She was very confused and said he was working late. I played it cool and just told her there was a package accidentally delivered to our house. She arrived minutes later to get the fictional package. I watched from my car as my wife opened the door in her robe. They talked for a moment, confused until the woman's husband came into view behind my wife. The woman started screaming and asking a lot of questions, trying to enter the house. As the scene escalated, I called my wife's parents. I told them it was nice knowing them and their daughter, but I was going to leave her because she cheated on me. They were shocked and started asking questions. I told them if they wanted to know what was going on, they could come to our house now for a surprise on what was happening. I wanted them to witness their daughter's affair in case she tried to spin the narrative. While they drove over, I walked straight into my house. My wife tried talking to me through yelling and sobs as she was being attacked by the other woman, and her husband tried holding her back. It was a huge mess and drama that I was not about to get caught up in. I went straight to the traveling bag that I kept packed in case of a short-notice trip. I walked back out of the house and told my wife she needed to leave with her parents when they arrived. This confused and panicked her. She clarified that her parents were coming, and I simply nodded as I put my bag in my car. I sat in my locked car until her parents arrived, and our neighbors refused to leave. The cheating man was trying to convince his wife to leave it alone, but she was not having it. She got in several slaps when my wife let down her guard and slapped her husband whenever possible. Obviously, all the questions in the world wouldn't make sense of unexpected infidelity. Nothing could soothe this betrayal. When my wife's parents arrived, I left. I don't know how they sorted out everything, but when I returned to my house one day later, the door was unlocked and a few things of mine were missing. After I filed for divorce, the calls, messages, and texts from my wife majorly increased. She was appalled by my sudden actions and wanted a chance to talk about what happened. I didn't care. I wanted a wife that wouldn't cheat on me, and I wasn't going to get that from her. She lived with her disappointed parents, and at the divorce hearing, she looked ragged and tired. She didn't work the same job anymore, and certainly didn't look happy. I found a ton of support from my friends and family, while everyone turned against her because of her irresponsibility and selfishness. I started dating again, but I'm mostly just relieved to be free from my ex and have my house back. Wow, OP, I'm so proud of you for keeping your cool as all of this went down. You managed to inform everyone necessary of what was going on so that you could emerge from this unscathed. Of course, this excludes the emotional turmoil involved in this betrayal, but I have faith in your ability to stay focused on your life's goals. It was so great you were able to call the guy's wife and have her come do the brunt of the work for you. Your wife deserved all of the stress and slaps she endured. You were right to end the marriage, and I'm sure you'll find a woman much better than your ex-wife. I wish you the best of luck with overcoming this situation. Now for today's second story. We started dating in September 2018 on my birthday, so that day has always been extra special to me. My partner does roster work. She works 8 days on a mine site and is back 6 days off. I work a decent 9-to-5 job, so we are both pretty well off. She's also an international resident, so I decided to help her get her visa to stay. We applied for the de facto spouse visa at the end of 2020. For the first 3.5 years, our relationship was really good. We both loved each other and were doing so much together. Unfortunately, some clashes between her and my mom led to us moving out and renting a place for 6 months. She knew how to do everything. She's extremely independent, so she knew how to take care of a house and cooked really good food. I, on the other hand, was a bit of a dropkick and didn't know how to do any of that properly. My mom looked after me a bit too much, which handicapped me a lot when I moved out. Whilst I was working every day and being very smart with our money, we never had any money problems. I was also a bit selfish as a 23-year-old who tended to spend a bit too much time at the computer and away from household chores. I did make sure I spent some time with her, though. We watched some good shows like Game of Thrones, Money Heist, and Merlin. I did, however, clean enough to ensure we got 100% of our bond money back. I did all the de-weeding by hand. After our 6-month lease was finally up, we bought a place together. This was around September 2021. She started her mining job around December 2021. And I, still being a dropkick, didn't do much of the housework, although I did learn to cook some dishes as I needed to make sure I kept myself fed whilst she was on site. But I still didn't do the laundry or vacuum and mop the floor because my standard of cleanliness was so much different from hers. Instead, I spent my time learning how to invest because she told me she wanted to make a lot of money. I designed an investment plan just to suit her. I enjoyed investing a lot, cleaning not so much. In April of 2022, and she broke down in our bedroom at my lack of help around the house. She told me she was incredibly stressed with having to come back and do all the housework after 8 long days on the mine site. At that stage, I finally woke up and became the adult I should have become long ago. I started vacuuming and mopping the whole house once a fortnight and doing the laundry every week, making sure she had an empty basket to work with when she came back. It was like a switch was flicked on in my head. I should also mention that sex was non-existent in the last year of our relationship. She didn't want to take the pill due to side effects, although she was on it periodically for the first 3 years, and we had sex then. I went to buy a pack of condoms, but then she went and hid the condoms when we were about to have sex. So I just refused to have sex with her because I didn't want to have unprotected sex and risk pregnancy. She even suggested that I take the male version of the pill that would make my sperm infertile or something. I don't even know what she was on about there. I kept up my routine, making my own lunches and maintaining the house while she was away. I finally became an adult that could survive on my own. But the relationship didn't seem to improve. Slowly over time, she stopped cooking for me and didn't like me touching her in bed. She also gave me her cheek for kisses instead of her lips. Looking back, these were all red flags, but I was blinded by love and my desperation to save the relationship. I kept up with the cleaning and maintenance. She even went back on the pill to balance her hormones, or so she claimed. I tried initiating sex with her again at that point, but she refused. And then came September 17th, 2022. I was mopping the floor in my computer room and couldn't use it because the floor was wet. I went to use her laptop instead and saw everything in Messenger. She had been in a casual but intimate relationship with a man on the mine site a little younger than me. The text messages were extremely explicit. I saw they had this going on since late July. I couldn't go any further back because I was about to throw up. I confronted her about it that night, and she told me she had been extremely stressed with work and had fallen out of love. I didn't understand. She loved me when I was a total dropkick. Then all of a sudden, I became this mature and capable adult, but she didn't love me anymore? I was a total wreck for the next week and couldn't sleep well. I decided to call things off with her. I cannot be with someone who commits infidelity. We are going to split up our assets and go our separate ways. She told me she wants to remain friends, but I don't think that's going to happen anytime soon, nor do I think that's a good idea for either of us. This also has implications for her visa. She is currently on her temporary visa until the end of November this year, at which point we were supposed to sign off on some documents so she could get her permanent residency. I told her I refused to sign any documentation as I basically would have to lie, which could get me sent to jail along with a big fine. She may still be able to get her permanent residency if the department decides to award it to her, but she is at a much greater risk of having to go back to a student visa, which means she will lose her mining job. Along with her life savings of having to enroll in some course she doesn't want to complete and pay international student fees, which are bloody expensive, along with wasting years of her life just to progress her spouse visa, all for nothing. OP, this was an exit affair. By the time she began crying to you about your lack of effort, she had already checked out. She, unfortunately, chose the most immature way to do it. At least you can use this as your own learning experience and personal growth. You didn't deserve to be cheated on. She could have been honest at any time. It would be best if you get to no contact as quickly as possible. Don't kick yourself too much. You were 20 years old when you entered into this relationship. You showed a great deal of maturity when you changed your behavior to help your partner and the relationship. Regardless, you have dodged a bullet and you will be better off without her. A young man who is capable of living on his own and who can cook and clean is a huge plus in the dating field. Enjoy being single. Thank you for taking the time to listen to today's stories. If you enjoyed listening, please like and subscribe if you haven't already. Also, comment below with your thoughts on what happened. Take care.